Well, how do we get from here to there? How do we get from a system that is inherently unjust to a system that is rooted in righteousness, in justice, in peace, motivated by the only true nexus between men, which is love? Bernard Lataire said yesterday that though the existing world economy is the problem, the chance of reforming the central banks of the major industrial nations is unlikely. Well, I would like to put all of that into historic perspective. And I would also like to put this conference in historic perspective, because there's much more going on here at Bard College today than meets our understanding. A seed is being sown for the transformation of this planet. Augustine was also responsible for the Inquisition. He was also responsible for the just war theory, and he was also responsible for the Roman churches and Christianity's misguided distrust of the feminine principle of life. Augustine held forth that history is open-ended, that it has no structure to it, that there is no pattern, and that everything that was ever written in the law and the prophets was fulfilled with the collapse of the Roman Empire, with Nero and the Caesars in the time of Christ. And that from that point on, everything is up for grabs, everything is open-ended. And as a result, following a theory such as that, everyone has a right to impress their own worldview upon the structure of history. Catholicism has been trying, and so have all the world systems. And born out of that systems, if you'll remember a few years ago, Newt Gingrich invited Alvin Toffler before the American Congress to expound something of his book called The Third Wave. And the third wave is based on a theory, just as Marx's dialectic theory is correct, so the third wave theory is correct. And it holds that the first wave of civilization was hunter-gathering, it was agricultural, it was agrarian. And that wave flowed over human civilization for hundreds of thousands of years, up until the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, in which case the second wave began. And the second wave came with such power and such force, such determination, that it was able to overwhelm almost completely first wave civilization, even though there is a struggle still happening between second wave and first wave culture, although second wave is now very comfortable in its position. So Wounded Knee happened in 1890, and America doesn't believe that it has to reenact that again. It put the first wave people in their place. But there right now is a third wave sweeping over the world. It is the age of information. We are part of that transformation. Newt Gingrich, by inviting Toffler to address the Congress, was trying to capitalize on this next wave and trying to consolidate the power of that wave inside of the thinking of the present world order, so that they can take control of it. And of course, they may seem to be in control of it, but they really can't. I have a friend in Vienna who said to me in his wonderful Austrian accent, he said, "Michael," he says, "they have no idea what they did when they put the internet in our hands." They may take it away from us very soon as the repressions begin in this country, but nevertheless, the cat is out of the bag. The information is being disseminated. And so, likewise, along with that theory was a book written by Malachi Martin. And it was called, his book is entitled The Keys of This Blood, The Struggle for World Dominion Between Pope John Paul II, Mikhail Gorbachev, and the capitalist West. And in a chapter entitled Servants of the Grand Design, 3 factions of this struggle for world dominion were delineated. One was called the Red International, and it was characterized by the rise of the Soviet Union, of course, but then finally with the coming of Mikhail Gorbachev. And Mikhail Gorbachev, incidentally, understood that the true social, the true spiritual revolution could not take place in Russia. And that's why he tried to liberalize Russia without losing control of the social ideal, the socialist ideal. Gorbachev knew that only in the United States of America could the true revolution unfold, because it's only here where we have this intense spiritual resolve. It is here where we have the skills, the talents, but it's here where we also have access to communications, which Russian peasants do not, or up until that point. But the Red International has, for all practical purposes, collapsed with the collapse of the Soviet Union. The second faction was the Black International, which is the power of the Roman Church. Well, we now see what is happening there. John Paul II is a metaphor for the irrelevance of Roman Catholicism and literally for Orthodox Christian teachings. So when you see John Paul sitting in the chair, withering away, hardly able to complete a phrase, it is a living metaphor for the fact that that part of the struggle for power is over. The Catholic Church is just a small player now. It's not the monolithic force that it was. The third force was, of course, the one that won the struggle, ostensibly, and that is the Golden International, and that would be the internationalists and the globalists of the Western world, of the capitalist world, who are now fighting with might and main to control and maintain the victory that they have won. Which brings us to the second world view. And the second world view is the view of the Essenes, the view of those pacifists, those absolute radical communists. And I don't mean communists in the material sense, I mean in the absolute spiritual sense. Their view was cyclical. They had an apocalyptic view of history. Their view held that history moves in great recurring cycles of time, and that when the great wheel, the great design, reaches a turning point, as at other turning points in the past, the next stage of human consciousness evolves. We are at one of those points. The great wheel of Dharma, the great wheel of Genesis, the great wheel of history is about to turn. And we are all experiencing this rise in human consciousness. It is happening all over the planet, but it's happening primarily here in the Western world. And this says something about what Margaret Kennedy mentioned yesterday, and that is the missing archetype. And that is the archetype of the divine feminine principle, and primarily the Divine Mother. Well, she has been missing not because she's been usurped, it's because she has purposely went into hiding. When the Divine Mother appeared in the world 2,000 years ago and gave birth to the age in which we presently live, she purposely then went into occultation as the sun. See, was embodied in the lunar principle. And the sun rose upon the earth 2,000 years ago. It was not only Christianity, but it was the male principle of life. And she went into occultation and allowed the male principle to rule over history for 2,000 years so that we could see vividly what imbalance looks like. What a world out of harmony, what a world with testosterone run wild, competition, war, vainglory. And that's what we are witnessing. But because there is such an exquisite pattern to history, the Divine Mother is now reappearing. She is now reasserting herself in the collective consciousness of our times, and she's getting ready to bring forth her next child. And that child is not only the next emerging state of human consciousness, but literally it's the next age, the age that's about to be born. And in order for that to be born, this age must collapse. Just as a child, every child is born out of the darkness of its own mother's womb into the light of day, we are now being born out of the darkness of this age into the light of a coming age. And we must make sure that we endure the contractions. Let's not hang on to the linings of the womb. Let's go with the flow and understand that this is all ordained, it's all nature. There's the chaos that appears to be unfolding in the world is really order. And the darkness, of course, leads to light. And of course, every child must go through the veil of blood, and that's what we see. The earth is shedding. There's all kinds of bloodshed all over the earth right now, attended by war and all sorts of misery. That's because the earth is shaking. The earth is reeling in the contractions of the coming age. And so I will end just with a selection from these texts that were hidden in the caves by the Essenes 2,000 years ago, and the timing is perfect in nature. And these are a set of texts that were labeled "The Triumph of God, the Descriptions of the Final Age." And among these texts was one that was called "The Wars Between the Sons and Daughters of Light and the Sons of Darkness." And that's what is now unfolding in the world. There is a contest, there is a war being waged by the mind of light against the mind that presently rules the world, the darkness. Well, the darkness is about to end. And so this one page, which I'll leave you all with, was one of the texts that was found in the cave, and it's a prophecy of our time, and it gives us hope and allows us to have a lot of faith in what's unfolding in the world. It says, "They," meaning we, "pay no heed to the real hidden meaning of things. They do not know the hidden meaning of what is actually taking place. And they have not understood the lessons of the past." Well, we have watched every empire in the past collapse. Just read history. Egypt rose up and Egypt collapsed. Then the Assyrian Empire rose and it collapsed, and then Babylon, and then the Persians, then Alexander's empire, and then came the Romans, and they lasted, it seemed like forever, but they collapsed. And then came the Seventh World Empire. The Holy Roman Empire was the seventh of the Western empires. And we saw it collapse before our very eyes at the turn of the 20th century with the world wars in Central Europe. The Holy Roman Empire collapsed. The United States is the eighth world empire that has conscripted the oracles of God, conscripted the truth, and turned it into a lie. Vern just mentioned the criminal element of the ruling class. In the prophets, it's called spiritual wickedness in high political and religious places. It says, they have not understood the lessons of the past, and consequently they have no knowledge of what is coming upon them, and they have done nothing to save their souls from the deeper implications of present events. This, however, will symbolize things for us. What is going to happen is that all iniquity is going to be shut up in the womb and prevented from coming to birth. Wrong is going to depart before right as darkness departs before light. As smoke disappears and is no more, so will wrong disappear forever, but right will be revealed like the sun. And the world will rest on a sound foundation. And all who cling to arcane law, error, will cease to exist. The world will be filled with knowledge, and ignorance will exist no more. The thing is certain to come, the prophecy is true, and by this you may know it will not be revoked. Do not all peoples hate wrongdoing? Yet is it not rampant among them all? Are the praises of truth not sung by all nations? Yet is there a single race or tribe that really adheres to it? What nation likes to be oppressed by a stronger power, or who wants his property plundered unjustly? Yet is there a single nation on earth that has not oppressed its neighbor? And where in the world will you find a people that has not plundered the property of another? There is only one nation on the face of the earth, one people that is not guilty of these crimes. And that is the people that are coming to the birth at this time. We are coming out of our old nature. We are coming out of the darkened condition in which we were born, and we are experiencing this great process of transformation that is going on. We're leaving the old behind, and we're following the light across the bridge into the coming age. And so let's just go with the flow and be one with the light, and embrace the Divine Mother as she gives birth to us all. If you're willing to pay the price, you can get out of this. When I came out of 10 years of military service, I was sort of naive about the American order of things, and I went to college, and I took a loan out to go to school. And I also had a brother-in-law who came to me, and he didn't have any credit, and he asked me if he could, if I would buy a car for him. And I did, so I went and signed for him to buy a brand new car. Well, my brother-in-law was a bookie. He was also an alcoholic. And one day, he just got drunk, broke, abandoned the car on the Long Island Expressway in New York, and I had to take over the car. Well, here I was going to school. I had 6 children. I had absolutely no means of paying for that car. So I went to the bank, and I said to them, look, I said, there are going to be times when I'm going to be behind in these car payments. They said, don't worry, Mr. Murphy, we'll work with you. I said, okay. Well, I had this car paid down to $500. But at this particular time, I was behind 2 payments, going on 3. And all of a sudden, I went out one morning to go to work, and the car was gone. It was missing from the garage. So I called up the police. I said, well, somebody stole my car out of the garage. And they said, is your name Murphy? I said, yeah. He said, well, no, that wasn't stolen. That was repossessed. I said, repossessed? By who? He said, the bank. So I went down to the bank. I said, you guys are thieves. I said, you guys are thieves. You said you would work with me in this. And so see, and that they did me such a wonderful favor because they woke me up. And I said to them, look, I owe you $5,000 for tuition. I said, I'm never paying you. I said, I'm absolutely forfeiting on that loan. And not only that, I am never going to borrow 1 penny from
institution as long as I live. And I never did. That was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
They never got their money back, but I have lived outside the economy for the last 30 years. If you're willing to do that,
So that's it.
just drop it.
But I have to cut this short because we have to be
Talk to me, I'm successful.
Cleaning people have to come in here.
Yeah, well, I've worked with people all over the United States. I've worked with a team of paralegals and CPAs, and we've been 100% successful challenging the banks on all unsecured debt. Okay? There are systems that are in place that use their rules against them, and they don't want to.
My answer to you was going to be to give this gentleman a talk, but since he already jumped